Now, you just sat up. Good. Smart play. Because this one's going to be talked about. Yeah, smart, John. You know, you obviously stand for brain.
Gets it.
Wide receiver room. You got a lot of business you're going to have to do. And I think you've even mentioned before, like, we've had to do this before too. Seemingly always us having to do this. And it's because of the eyeing of talent, the finding of talent, bringing in of talent, success, a lot of eyeballs, and everybody wanting, everybody that you have seemingly on your team, especially when you have a plethora. That wide receiver room has a lot of business that has to be handled. Is that how you see it? And what are your thoughts on how you're going to, kind of navigate it all, knowing that humans are involved, money's involved, and having a football team ready to go this fall that needs to win a Super Bowl so that we can add a 6th trophy to the wall there in San Francisco?
Yeah, well, here's my thoughts. I love our roster. I love the way it's comprised. As I said, we were right there, and we got to find a way to get just a little bit better. And I'm doing everything in my power to keep our roster together, and that's my goal. And I don't question that. I've got so much belief. When you talk about guys like Brandon Ayuk and Debo, they're guys we drafted. They're guys we take a lot of pride in what they've become, who they've become, and we couldn't be more proud of those guys. And so, during the course of drafts and off seasons, do conversations happen? Absolutely, they do. We're past that now, and we're thrilled to add to that group Jawan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk, Debo Samuel, Chris Conley, Ronnie Bell, Danny Gray, and now you add Ricky Pearsall, Jake Cowing. I think we made an already strong group even stronger. And part of my job is to think about the now and then to think into the future as well. Think out, and so. But we don't do that without thinking, can these guys contribute right away? And we have a vision for both those guys, how they can contribute and be a part. And they represent a lot of the qualities that we like in our players. And they were the best players there for us at the time. And so we're thrilled to add those guys to an already strong room. And we're ready to roll forward. And we've got to find a way, like I said, just to get that much better. And we think we really helped our roster throughout this offseason, free agency, into the draft. And we're fired up about our team.
John, you're awesome, dude.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I did not expect this. I mean, I should have, with everything that we let off about the rest of his life. Banger after banger after banger after
Hall of Fame life.
Hall of Famer, Hall of Fame.
Truly.
Like everything you did. You're awesome on it. I am so thankful you took time. Now, a lot of the roster stuff, I think, is potentially because you have the cheapest draft pick available contract at the highest priced position. Connor has a question for you.
Yeah, obviously someone who loves the wide receivers, Brock Purdy. And we all know in this room that 2 years ago, you guys had Purdy as the number one player in the draft. You just luckily didn't have to take him till 262. What did you see in Brock, John, when you guys were looking at him and drafting him? And then now, here you are, 2 years later, two NFC championships, one Super Bowl appearance later. What do you see from him now and kind of his growth? And are you mentally prepared for a $500 million check, or how are you going to do that?
Way to set me up for success. But no, you always, I think the people you don't hear about, the unsung heroes, like in these organizations, and that's, to me, it's our scouts, it's our coaches, and I think two people deserve so much credit for Brock Purdy, and one of them now is in our pro department. He's a guy by the name of Steve Slowick. His brother's Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator down there in Houston. But Steve was the college scout that would go through Iowa State, and we thought Brock might come out into the league the year before. We had high grades on him, actually a little higher his junior year than his senior year. But Steve was a guy who had the benefit of going into that school, hearing Matt Campbell, who did such a great job at Iowa State turning that program around. And Steve would always come during these draft meetings, in the fall meetings, in the draft meetings, and just speak so glowingly about Brock and the culture changer he was, how Iowa State would not be where they're at without Brock Purdy. And Steve was seeing it with his own eyes, but he was also telling us what Matt Campbell was saying. And Matt Campbell had been, there's good recommenders, and Matt had always proven to be a really good recommender. When he believed in a guy, it usually translated. And so Steve was very integral in that process. The other guy I'd say was Brian Greasy. Brian was incredibly impressed once we kind of gave Brian to him and said, hey, get on these Zooms, start talking to Brock. And Greasy came back extremely convicted. And then it's in Kyle's hands, it's in my hands, and we start watching. And We were so smart. We waited till the very last pick to draft him, and thank God he was there. He's been tremendous for our organization, and you really could see it right away. I think he was fourth on our depth chart. And there's a corny saying that people say, about training camp and like, don't count your reps, make your reps count. And the one thing we saw about Brock, he'd get like 3 or 4 reps a practice when we first started. But man, he didn't come in and just play it safe. He was ripping it in windows that were small and doing so with confidence. That's a hard thing to do because it's an easy way to get run right out of here when you're the last pick in the draft and you're trying to make these bold plays. But he just played with a confidence, a poise, and you start seeing that. Then it's like Kyle says, well, let's give him 6 reps, and then let's give him 8 and 10. And he just kept kind of doing it over and over and over again. And Trey got hurt, and he eventually just kept getting better. And then ultimately Jimmy Garoppolo, who had come back, got hurt versus Miami. Brock goes in, and kind of the rest is history. He played with an incredible. I'll never forget that first game against the Dolphins. I mean, Brian Flores was the defensive coordinator. The head coach then. And, if you watch Minnesota, they come at you harder than anybody. They blitz more than anybody. Well, that's what they did with Brock out there. And the poise with which he took that challenge on and led us to a victory, man, you started to think we might be on to something. And then it just kept getting better. And Brock's been awesome. And we're thrilled to have him part of our organization. He's an awesome kid. And he's got a lot of ability. And it's a great story, but it's more than a story now. He's our guy, and we're thrilled to have him.
Yeah, he's awesome. And there's a bunch of rumors every offseason about conversations that you have potentially or Shanahan has with people, and you just saying there, he's our guy, and it's awesome is a beautiful thing because, when Mr. Irrelevant comes around, now everybody's going to say, this could be a next Brock Purdy.
Look out.
That's what they're going to say. And guess what? They're not. They are. This dude is an anomaly, I think. From everything, from the way he dresses, the way he responds to things, the way he acts, the way he throws, the confidence in which you say he talked about on day 1, 4 reps, trying to throw some seeds. If those are pick 6, this guy sucks. Why are we wasting a body on him? Instead, he becomes your guy. He's jacked too, huh? Was that Photoshop I saw on the internet, or is he...
Yeah, Brock's taking good care of himself. He's a worker. He's always going to work. I mean, last year, you remember against Philly in the championship game, tore up his elbow, and just kept watching him beat timelines. And he kept saying, "I'm going to be fine. I'll be there." Come training camp, and kind of against all odds, he made it back. And we're blessed to have Brock Purdy around this organization.